Welcome back to this briefing on the basics of K-12 public education in the United States. The briefing makes 4 key points. First, the purpose of public education is contested. Second, the system is highly decentralized. Third, how well our schools are doing depends on who you ask. And improving our schools is a serious management challenge. When you finish watching this series of videos, you should have a better understanding of why the system works the way it does, and be better able to anticipate how new change efforts might unfold in the future. The briefing is organized in 4 parts, each posted as a separate recording. This is part 4. Improving our schools is a serious management challenge. Education reform occurs within the social and political dynamics that exist in our society, influenced by race, class, current events, economics, power, different theories of governance, different cultural and religious values, periodic political cycles and pendulum swings, and people's differing personal stakes in the system. Divergent interests between groups such as parents of young children and those without children in the public schools, and even complicated and conflicting values amongst the same group or individual. For example, Corcoran and Gertz write, middle-class Americans seem to simultaneously embrace 2 opposing principles. All children should have equal opportunity for a good education and through hard work, upward mobility, and economic success. And families should be able to use their resources to secure educational advantages for their children. It's like saying, we want an education system that is equal for everyone, but a little more equal for me. I think this quote is helpful in understanding the push and pull within and between these stakeholders. Speaking of stakeholders, there are many, with many different opinions. There's a crowded cloud of adults with interests in education policy participating in the political process that governs schools and shapes the direction of education policy. A business community with interest in an appropriately skilled and educated workforce. Parents desiring schools that meet their children's needs. Civil rights organizations who have fought for decades on platforms ranging and evolving from employment of teachers of color to integration of schools to more community control, and more recently, both for and against Common Core and school choice. I'll quickly highlight 3 more of these groups that have been particularly controversial in recent years. Especially since the 1960s, teachers' unions have exercised significant influence through collective bargaining and political activism. The 2 largest teachers' unions, the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers, have nearly 4 million active members as of 2013 and had about $550 million in revenue in 2010. They exert significant influence in public elections and policy debates, lobby, and contribute to campaigns. Collective bargaining rules differ across states, with 34 states expressly protecting teachers' rights to bargain collectively as of 2000. Professor Patrick McGuinn is among the scholars who have explored the rising influence of education reform advocacy organizations in recent decades, such as Stand for Children, Students First, 50 CAN, the Black Alliance for Educational Options, and many more. Many of these are connected to the movement for more school choice, including supporting the expansion of charter schools. Foundations have also played an influential and controversial role in steering reform efforts, providing billions in private investment in school reform. Some of the largest are the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Walton Family Foundation, Broad, Annenberg, Carnegie Corporation, among many others. But in addition to these large national players, almost every region has smaller foundations that focus on supporting educational improvements in that particular region of the country. In this crowded space, education policy issues have had a way of sometimes creating unusual political alliances that cut across the traditional political spectrum. For example, some business interests and civil rights organizations have found common ground in support of more rigorous and centralized academic standards and accountability, combined with more school choice, often in the form of charters. Most of the nation's 13,500 school districts is led by an elected board with the authority to hire and fire the leader of the organization, the superintendent of schools, as well as other employees. As the expectations for the outcomes we want from our schools have been raised, the job of the teacher, principal, and district management have become more complex and challenging. I saw the superintendents I worked with trying to navigate three leadership challenges simultaneously. First, managing decline, dealing with over 100 years of accumulated infrastructure, aging buildings, the inertia of decades of accumulated policies, agreements, expectations, financial commitments, as well as, in the case of Pittsburgh at least, declining student enrollment. Number two, managing the system itself. In all of the myriad day-to-day challenges that arise when leading an organization with so many moving parts. Take again Pittsburgh, for example, where you have 25,000 students and 4,000 employees, and all of the daily challenges that this inevitably presents. And third, managing change, trying to simultaneously update this system and improve it to be more modern, get better results, and align with our current needs. As change occurs in this kind of complicated and connected system, it can create winners and losers, and rarely is uniformly embraced. Those who oppose the new direction might be inspired to take action, including things like running for school board and moving the organization in a different direction. This contributes to the political cycles and pendulum swings we often see as different reform priorities come and go. According to the Council for Great City Schools, the average tenure in 2014 for superintendents in its 66 member districts was just over 3 years. In closing, I want to be clear that the point of this section is not that it's impossible to improve these systems or to lead change effectively. Both of the superintendents that I worked for created positive new programs that sustained beyond their tenure and managed the system well from my perspective, making the kind of hard decisions that are often necessary when managing decline. But clearly, improving our schools is a serious management challenge. This closes the fourth and final segment in our briefing. Take a few minutes to think about what you've learned. If you were charged with implementing educational change, how might the information you've learned affect your approach? How would it influence your ability to be successful? What are some of the steps you would take to set yourself up for success and improve your results?